Okay, this is April the 4th, 2020. I hope everybody is home, safe and sound. This is my analysis game of practice game 6. If you look at my channel, you'll see a game actually labeled practice game 6. That's where I'm actually playing the game. This is my analysis of that same game. So hopefully you'll see my thought process as well as the time challenge and then compare to the actual analysis of the game. One thing that I did want to bring up before I start the analysis are basic ideas in the opening, middle game, and end game, especially for the beginners. Now, you can get any beginner book and it'll have the same ideas in there, but just to refresh your mind before we do this quick analysis, in the opening, you want to develop your pieces, maintain mobility, control the center, get your king into a safe position, and minimize your weak squares. A weak square is any square that cannot be defended by a pawn. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but that's the basic idea. In the middle game, you want to check for tactical threats. You want to identify strong squares. You want to identify strong and weak pieces. You want to consider the position of your queen. Very often when you're a beginner or even an intermediate player, you might bring your queen out early in the game and your opponent allows you to do that and you win the game. You say, wow, it must be a good idea. Well, no, you're just playing a weak opponent. If you bring your queen out early in the game, what your opponent should do is look for ways to attack that queen and thereby gaining tempos throughout the game and gain better development for the middle game. So make sure you consider whether your queen's in a good position or a vulnerable position. Consider the king's position. The king should be in a safe position. Usually that means you need to castle your king early in the game and leave those pawns in front of your king where they are. They're doing their job, they're protecting their king. Now, if you start to move those pawns, start to advance those pawns down the board, that usually weakens your king position and gives your opponent an opportunity to attack. Now, in certain positions, it's okay to do that, especially if you're through the middle game and you're in the end game. Because in the end game, you may have to advance those pawns just so that you can reposition your king in the center, which is necessary because most of the other pieces are gone. Consider your long-term plan. Consider your in-game advantage. Check for tactical threats. Your in-game. Make sure you apply your in-game skills. Now, it's very hard to acquire in-game skills without having a basic book. And there's a book, In-Game Essentials. I went through that once upon a time. That's a very good book. And it's good to establish your in-game playing skills. And the last concept I want to share is just not looking, just playing a weak game. And you can usually play a very weak game by not checking for tactical opportunities for yourself as well as those tactical opportunities for your opponent. If you never look and you're playing a person of any degree of skill, they're going to punish you for it. Okay, let's look at this analysis and see if you can keep those ideas in mind as we go through this. I should have checked the time. I'm trying to come in under 10 minutes. Let's see if I actually make that. Developing, trying to get control of the center. Developing your pieces towards the center. Attacking the pawn. Getting your king into a safe position. Trying to stop your opponent from restricting the movement of your knight. Winning the pawn. Trying to regain the pawn by placing your rook on the half open file. Regaining the pawn. Getting your king into a safe position. Defending the strong position of your knight. Usually you don't want to exchange a bishop for a knight. Bishops are good in open positions. Knights are good in closed positions. So that knight is going to stay posted until black can figure out how to move this knight and push up against the white knight with pawn at f6. Okay, this is the first really weak move by white because it loses a tempo. And that's not immediately clear, but if I had analyzed the position, analyzed the move a bit closer, given my opponent's response, I would have seen it. I didn't see it. What I should have done in this position is develop the knight first to prevent the black knight from coming to d5. I did not, and the result is loss of a tempo. And you keep losing tempos, you'll eventually lose the game. I have to protect my white bishop, and that gives black another move that he otherwise would not have had. I didn't make any improvements to my position by moving my bishop back. So I just gave black another move. He used it to get my knight out of the center of the board. Exchange off the bishop, force my knight even further towards the edge of the board. Well, actually on the edge of the board. If I had used my king to take it, then he would still get a check for a tempo at some point. There's my next big error in the game. Right now, nobody really has control of the file. If I exchange off my rook, that gives black control of the file. You don't just give your opponents control, make them fight for it. And that's what they're going to try to do to you, make you fight for any control you can get. This computer is set for between 2100 and 2200, which is a very high level. So you can't just give up tempos and files. Even though it was a 3-minute game, I will say that. Now this is another difficult position I find myself in. Black is attacking c2 and he's attacking h3. I gotta find a move that'll solve both of those problems. I don't think I did that very well. Matter of fact, I know I didn't. I used my knight to attack the queen and the bishop and to defend the g2 square or g2 pawn, but once he captures a pawn, now he's on my queen, so I really didn't stop both the moves. Now his bishop is going for a strong square of her own. Once she gets here, no pawn can attack her. You have to excuse me, I think I got something in my eye. So my best move here should have been take the check, which gives me a tempo against the king. Move back to f5. When the bishop takes c5, I can threaten the bishop with a piece, and they'll exchange his strong bishop for my weak knight. That's not what was done. Now black has locked up the movement of the queen side, so that's where he plans to get a passed pawn at. I'm going to try to come up with something that'll defend that. I did not, because here the only move I considered for my opponent was bishop takes knight, rook takes bishop, which would get rid of his strong bishop. Then if he took the pawn, he'd have two isolated pawns here and two isolated pawns here. I felt that gave me my best chance, and because I didn't give him, my opponent, any other moves, and of course the best move in this position, simply to pin the knight to the rook. And now he has two attackers on my knight. I only have one defender, and I can't get another defender there in time. He wins the whole piece. And when you're piece up in the end game, it's a very easy win. Okay, I enjoyed it. I hope you learned from it. Goodbye.